Joe here, back with another rant. Today's rant is about charity and what's wrong with charity. That's a big one. These days, the libertarians are insisting that care of society can be handled by charities, that we don't need government money to look after our poor, our indigent, our disabled, etc. And charity is an old model. Charity is born of a basic human drive to care for each other. And so the idea of charity is that groups of people get together to make it possible to care for each other. And the idea of government, socialism, governmental, I don't even have a word for it. Welfare. When people are given money by a governing body who arbitrarily takes it from the rest of the people without necessarily giving them a choice in the matter. That's state-sponsored socialism. That's, state-sponsored charity, as it were. There are different types of charity, and we currently have both going on. A lot of people want to abolish the government-based charities. They say that it's just too easy to get money and it's just being floated around and it's too expensive and they want their taxes back. And they say that private charities will pick up the slack. What's wrong with charity? First, I'll tell you what's right with government-sponsored charity, government-funded charity. It takes all comers. It's easy to get the money. They do have checks and balances in place to prevent fraud, and in fact, it can be quite expensive and life-damning to get caught defrauding the government for free money. Even a person who quietly makes a couple $100s a month over and above their allowance will see it taken off as soon as they find out. And if they're in the mood, if your attitude's wrong, they may even proceed with criminal charges. So it's not that easy. If you get caught defrauding the government for welfare, for free welfare, or free disability allowances, or free benefits, you do face pretty severe penalties, and your lifestyle will be severely restricted because of it. I knew a fella who was living on a stew a day because they were taking money out of his welfare check in order to cover some expenses that he hadn't expected to pay. Anyway, that was years ago. And so the whole problem of people defrauding the government is not as bad as you might think. It may look like it. I know your nephew's son's sister's cousin's girlfriend is popping out babies like crazy because she doesn't want to work. You know what? You're making assumptions. Period. If you knew her well enough to know whether or not what you're saying is true, you'd know her well enough not to judge her. That's what I'm saying. So let's not take your anecdotal, rare, occasional, apparent abuse and use it as a model for why it's a problem. I don't care what system you have. There will be scammers because scammers are successful at life. And so scamming is a successful technique at life. And they use it everywhere. They use it in every echelon of society, from the homeless guy that scams the shoes off of the guy next to him, steals the shoes off the guy next to him, to the rich multi-billionaire corporate who steals your country's wealth. Okay? We are plagued by scammers on every level. So don't continue with that line of thought as to why easy money is a problem. It's not that easy. And when you have to go in and ask for it, only a sociopath can do that easily. The rest of the population, it's anxiety making. So, charity has a lot of the same problems as welfare. People can abuse it and scam it. It's difficult to ask for. And like the federal disbursement, somehow manages to miss a lot of important people. I think charity misses more than federal, and I think that if everything that is currently charity was part of one large oversight management, that fewer people would fall between the cracks. Bob over there qualifies for disability, but only a little bit. He has to go apply for something else. And that something else wants him to go apply to this other place to cover up a balance. And by the time he's done, he's getting 5 separate checks. All of them are the minimum that agency can possibly give him as according to their laws. And none of them are enough to actually cover his cost of living. And so Bob's out there begging. For an example, if you have any cognitive function disability, like executive function, and it doesn't have to be big enough to be glaring to where they take you into a home. It can be the level of where you can maintain a household. You can pay your rent, you can pay your bills, but you can't handle the complicated machinations of 5 different charities, 5 different people you have to interface with, and they want you to interface with them frequently because they're keeping an eye on you. They want to make sure you really still need them. And that comes to the relationship between the beggar and the donor. There is where the problem in charity lies. And it's worse in charity than it is in the government. Because in the government, it's kind of your government entitlement. You know, you're like, no, I'm entitled to these things as a citizen of this country. And it's an entitlement. And there's laws, and then there's rules, and they're important, and they're understandable, and they're clear, and they're written up, and they're sitting on a website, and you can look them up. There's boundaries, and so when you have oversight like that, most of your needs will be met if they're needs, compared to charity where this charity gets this and that charity gets that, the other charity gets the other thing. Like, for instance, a charity helps me pay for my medical supplies, and they cover half of the cost, for which, actually, it's a government charity, a government fund for cancer survivors, where they pay half of the supplies of things that I need as a result of having had cancer, which is lovely. And yet the store that sells the supplies doubled their prices because, after all, I'm only paying half. I might as, because after all, most of us are covered by insurance, and insurance pays the other half, and the customer doesn't know that they're paying, that they're between them and the charity, they're paying twice the price. So, bang, because it was a separate charity instead of an everybody all in one with, transparency, there's an opportunity for ripoff. And you can't really say that the store is ripping them off, because the store's got their overhead, and they've got their salaries, and they have to maintain good quality staff for good quality service. And you can't go after them because they're the only place in town. You go after them, you're screwed. You're mail ordering, and you've got no expert advice. So the system continues. Charities. The inherent relationship between the beggar and the donor is one of inequality. The inequality is there to begin with. It's the reason that someone is asking for a handout, because they don't have enough. And that is an inequality. And that inequality is glaring and obvious, because the person who's giving has more than enough. The person who's getting has too little. And in our society, that's status. That's your place in life. That's your identity. That's your ego. That's your self-confidence. That's your right to speak. That is your importance in society. That is your relevance to the rest of the world. He's got more than you. He knows it. You know it. Everybody knows it. He's more important than you. He's better than you. Disrespect. I'm hearing noises and thought maybe my spouse was returning. That's disrespect. And that fundamental disrespect remains no matter how hard the charity person tries to put it away and talk like a person to person. It's there. And the person they're talking to knows it's there, even though the person, the charitable person, may not acknowledge the presence of that disrespect, even to themselves. It leaks out. Disrespect leaks out. Disrespect sneaks up. You're like, oh, the beggar is maybe being a choosing beggar, whatever. That word alone is right there, actually. That's a good word. Choosing beggar. Beggars can't be choosers. You're a beggar. You don't have choice. I'm sorry. I get to make the decisions for you because I'm the one with the money. And it comes up. So now all of a sudden the beggar has to show receipts, show cause, get permission, justify. And when's the last time you had to justify buying a chocolate bar or going to a movie? But no. People with no money of their own have no rights to make these choices. In fact, they should just live on the bare minimum food that will keep them alive, in the bare minimum residence that will keep them alive, at the bare minimum clothing and medicine and whatever, the bare minimum that will keep them alive, because our society punishes people who don't work hard enough. And if you're not making enough money, you're clearly not working hard enough. And I'm sorry. I go at this hard. I do this project, this activity, which was once incredibly valuable. I go at it more than 40 hours a week. I've calculated 60 to 80 hours a week that I spend working. I don't go leisuring, but I don't make any money. Not one flippin' red cent. I have tried. People look at it and they go, "You want how much? I could get that over here at Walmart for like pennies. Why would I pay you for it?" Like, okay, well, fine. I can also get the fancy wool one from Guatemala, where they only pay them like $1 a month, and I can get it for like a fraction of what you're. It's like, yeah, those are farmers being exploited, and you're going to go to their product instead of mine because I live in the first world and can't live on $1 a month. Can I go to Guatemala? Oh, no, that's a luxury destination. I forgot. Only the Guatemalans are allowed to live in, it just goes on and on and on. I live in Canada. It's winter out there. I've got expensive needs. We all do because everything's bloody overpriced here. That's a fact. And that includes my wool. That includes my yarn. That includes my products. And yet, people have got this really sideways idea of what their money should buy. And so I cannot make product for the market to live on. I can't get someone to pay me to make product for the market to live on. And as for my employability status, well, I'm too damn disabled for anybody to actually pay me even minimum wage. And a sheltered workshop, those sheltered workshops are for psychological benefit. There's no profit in it. Charity. The people who are seeking charity are not lazy. They're not stupid. Some of them are. Well, maybe some of them are lazy. I don't know. You're lazy. You ever stop to think about maybe you're lazy? You work hard. You go to work. You do what you're told. You keep it up. You don't complain. You collect your check. You go home. You sit on your bottom watching YouTube videos. Hello. That's lazy. Maybe we should stop demonizing it. Maybe we should start recognizing that lazy is a perfectly natural animal instinct. Conservation of energy. We don't look at an elephant. We don't look at a lion resting after a kill, after his female lion killed it. Call him lazy and say that he doesn't deserve to live and doesn't deserve to eat. It's perfectly natural. Laziness is a natural part of biology. And so, yes, some of them will be lazy as the rest of us. But it doesn't mean that people who are beggars or charitable applicants are less than you. And yet, it happens. Now, when you stick an employee in charge of gatekeeping the money, instead of, a self-righteous, smug prick who thinks he's better than most people in society because he's giving stuff away, you instead make it an institutional thing, like, universal basic income where everybody qualifies and you don't have to justify it and you don't have to beg for it and you're not a beggar. You're just, oh, look, I turned 16. I automatically get the monthly allowance that my government puts out there to make sure that none of us has to go hungry. Isn't that a beautiful thing for a wealthy country to do for the people who made it wealthy? Have you ever heard of use value? There is economic value and use value. Economic value is the stuff people pay you for. Use value is the stuff you do for each other and yourself. Use value is the scars I gave away to a couple of people who could never have afforded it, but totally deserved it, because none of the people who could have afforded it were willing to buy it. That's use value. Those scarves became use instead of economic value. Use value is the extra bit of sidewalk you clear with snow for help your neighbor out. Use value is when you volunteer. Use value is when you rescue a dog. Use value is when you sweep your sidewalk and wash your windows and paint your house. Use value gives society value, but it's useful, not financial. And isn't that interesting that we recognize that economy and usefulness are not necessarily the same thing? That what makes the economy run is not necessarily useful to the people who do it. Am I useful? My father once called me useless. And nobody's ever argued with that. Then he always said he was right. But no, I mean, every time I've ever tried to get a job, nobody's ever argued with my dad. I apparently am useless. It doesn't matter how many skills I have or how much work I do, somehow I'm useless. Don't tell me why. People have tried, it never makes sense. It's got something to do with my personality. Really, it's autism. It's my primary disability, autism, ADHD. Oh, I actually don't want to tell you all my medical history, although I'm sure it's all out there. I mean, on my YouTube channel out there, like I'm sure that I've given you clues in every single rant as to who I am and what I'm about, and that I am an absolutely useless waste of space and a nothing. But I don't see any of you coming here to kill me and put me out of my misery. So meanwhile, could I just please have less misery? That's the way I look at it. You know, include me in the world, please. Make room for me. I promise I'm capable of sitting in a corner and doing something useful. If you'll just stop talking at me and making me have conversation, which then ticks you off and annoys you. I'm happy coming to YouTube to do my ranting. Okay, I think it's time. I don't know how long this is. 20 minutes. 17 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, that's not bad. Yeah, okay. I like to keep these under 20 minutes. So, rant conclusion, summary. Summary is that government-sponsored disbursements are better than charity organizations because charity organizations have more opportunity for disrespect and attitude, whereas government organizations tend to have more of a sense of, well, everybody's entitled, you really shouldn't have to justify yourself. And that being said, the last time I was in a welfare office, they were still raking you over the coals emotionally. They were still trying to make sure that you were really in need. They still had the main driving mandate in the office was reduce the welfare roll. That was the driving mandate, was to reduce the numbers. Someone comes into your office who's new, grill them, try to make them give up. Someone is in your office that's been there before, that's a current client, keep forcing them to try and get them off welfare, you know, shame them, grind them, hammer them with insistence that they look for work, and accuse them of lying if they tell you they can't find it. Shame them, put them down, treat them with less. So at the moment, you know, charities are actually kind of kinder because they're full of themselves, and whereas welfare workers are just like, I have to live on $60,000 a year. That's really hard, and I put in 50 hours a week on this job. Also, I can give you people free money. What's that all about? I should just quit my job and go on welfare myself. But I'm better than that. Yeah, that's a really common attitude problem in the welfare office, and that's because you're not getting paid properly. Money. Money isn't even real, and yet that's the thing. Money's not real. It's not a thing. It doesn't actually exist. Coins exist, dollar bills exist, concepts exist, number lists exist, accountants exist. All of the stuff around it exists, but the money itself is a lie. You can't eat it. You can't grow it. You can't wear it. You can't do a blasted thing. It doesn't even exist. It's not even a pile of gold in a basement somewhere anymore. It doesn't exist. The money is just made up. They literally print more money whenever they want to. And just, play games with the numbers, and inflation will make up the difference. And I don't even understand all of that, do you? But let me tell you, you deserve yours too. I deserve mine. You deserve yours. And the only way we're going to get it is universal basic income, where everybody gets enough. And we can throw in some social workers for special needs clients. I mean, the cost of my medical appliances are pretty high. And it wouldn't be fair to ask me to cover those extra needs that I cannot go around without. Cannot. It's a colostomy bag. Just cannot do without it. Cannot make do. I often think about how am I going to make do if I fall out of the system and am homeless. I often think about it, and it's scary. It's very scary. I can really create an anxious daymare with that one. So, hairs on my dust on my laptop. I'm done. That's it. UBI. That's what's going to save me.